Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Elbow Nudge Podcast,
How dare you?
episode 7. I'm here with my good friend Caroline. Caroline, how you
Hello,
doing?
everyone. I'm doing great. First of all, I really thought you were going to start this episode off with one of your funny voices that I heard yesterday, like a little bit, but it's
That's
fine.
not happening. It depends on the movies we're watching.
That's true. And you know what? I do have to give that to you because this week is not the week for that.
It's
This
not the week for that.
it's not. These movies are going to be pretty hardcore.
Oh, you think so?
Well, just in the sense of they're not a boot a boop 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 kind of movie.
No, but they're enjoyable.
Yeah, yeah, I'll give you that. You
I'm
know,
not saying it's a family fun, exciting adventure, but
You,
they're
you
good
know,
movies.
in hindsight, when we were entering the month of December, I thought, oh man, this is great. Doing a movie podcast in December. We're going to watch all these Christmas films. We're going to watch all these family friendly content. And here we are talking
Here we
about
are.
holding up hospitals and
We're
killing
doing the Saw
wives.
franchise today, guys. Welcome. I convinced Caroline to
Why you
watch
gotta bait them like that?
the entire Saw franchise.
That's going to be your clickbait YouTube thumbnail.
Oh yeah, don't worry, we're definitely gonna cover that.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't doubt
Yeah.
you. But I just thought it was pretty neat that we're doing stuff like that. Last week though, we covered the Oceans franchise, which to be fair, that's a huge family movie for my family. But this week we did another double recommendation process, like the way we did with Jumanji and True Grit. We each gave each other a movie to watch and we watched it.
That the other
So
person hasn't seen.
exactly. The other one hasn't seen.
Hmm.
And so, Tony, you gave me the movie John Q, starring Denzel Washington,
The man Denzel
the
Washington.
man Denzel. And I gave you.
Fracture, starring Anthony Hopkins
Hmm.
and Ryan Gosling.
Yes.
I almost forgot. I was gonna say and Bradley Cooper.
I could tell you forgot.
I was like,
I was ready for
uh,
you to say Jake Gyllenhaal, Bradley Cooper, Ryan Reynolds, but I would never recommend you a Ryan Reynolds movie. I know you. Western I can get away
yeah.
with. A Western I can get away with, but a Ryan Reynolds, I think you'll just end the podcast right there.
Yeah, that's not happening ever. I've suffered enough. But let's talk about these good movies today.
Yeah, yeah. So
So
that
which one
does
are we gonna go over first?
that gives me some hope though that you're referring to them as good movies. I can already like take it easy throughout this podcast. But
Were you on the fence or
yeah, I mean, I
hesitant?
never know with you. You know, I gave you a Western film and you shot me down. And then but
What? What do you mean you never know me? You already knew. We went over this. You knew recommended me a Western. You're like, I gotta convince this guy. I know he hates it, but I gotta convince him.
I explained this last week that
I
when
know.
I have this dream and it's going to come true one day and I just
Okay.
don't know when. But yeah, so I'm going to leave it up to you. Which one do you want to cover first? Because I do feel like it can tell how we end this episode with the mood of it.
How we end the episode?
Yeah, like how do you want to start and end it? Because John Q has some pretty emotional moments, whereas Fracture is a little bit more thrilling in the sense of it is a thriller.
So let's start with Fracture.
All right.
I want you to tell the listeners why you recommended me this movie first.
So I was thinking about recommending you because when I thought, you know what, last time I gave him a Western that was really outside of his preference. I want to recommend him a movie that I think is more in line with his preferences.
And what's
And just like crime, thriller, kind of that mystery kind of thing. And I had thought that that's a little bit more along the lines of movies that you like. It's not like so much as a mafia movie or like a Back to the Future kind of thing, but I know you kind of like some serious films like that, where it's more like about like the thrillerness of it.
Yeah,
kind of thing?
mystery. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was where I was already like leaning into. I was trying to think of a movie that I watched that left a big impression on me in that kind of genre. And to me, that movie was Fracture. I saw that movie in theaters when it came out, and I have like continued to, it hasn't been like a continuous rewatch like the Ocean's movies for me, but anytime I think of a good mystery thriller movie, Fracture is the first one that comes to mind for me.
In theaters.
Yeah.
So whose choice was that? Because I know you had no idea what this movie was going to be.
It was my mom and my aunts. They were talking about it, and I think my aunt had already seen it, and she was hyping it up to my mom. And my mom was like, "Oh, we're gonna go watch this movie." So we went and we saw it.
And she got it right.
Yeah. Why
It's
don't you
pretty good.
explain? Yeah, I want you to explain some of the parts that you like about it. Maybe give a synopsis. I haven't seen it in a long time, so my memory is not as grand as you who have seen it recently.
Yeah, also with John Q, I was hoping to watch it a little bit more recent so I
Me
could,
too.
yeah, so I could kind of be a part of that. But I think I saw it like maybe 2 months ago or less. No more than 2 months ago.
I remember a lot of the plot details around Fracture, so I'm pretty sure as you speak, I'll know what you're talking about.
All right, well, I'm gonna keep it simple for the people out there like me who need simplicity in their life. So, Fracture is just about this old guy played by Anthony Hopkins, and he catches his wife, who is way younger than him,
Hmm.
way too young for him. Well, he catches her cheating on him at this resort or hotel, right?
Mm-hmm.
So his immediate plan is to confront her about it and kill her, just straight up shoot her, or so we think that she dies at first. But this is part of the story. So he
Yeah.
confronts her, pulls out a gun, shoots her, bam, no question that it was him. But then this turns out to be part of this multi-layered plan of his for I don't really know what reason. Well, I know there's a revenge reason of the cheating, but he really starts getting at more specifically the lawyer who gets involved, which is Ryan Gosling. Ryan Gosling gets put on this case because he he's like this hotshot lawyer, very good at his job. He wins
Yeah.
all his cases, and he gets a job at this super fancy, nice law firm that pretty much everybody wants to get into. And he gets it because of his reputation. But in the meantime, he's still transitioning from like his old dumpy law firm. I think doing what like criminal cases or whatever it's called. I'm not too familiar with
Yeah, I
law,
think
but
he works for the DA. So he's just I think it's prosecuting, it's either state or federal cases. It's one of
okay.
those.
So yeah, he's really good at his job, and he got noticed, and he got the job at the fancy law firm. So he's transitioning. He has one foot out the door. He doesn't really he doesn't really pay no mind to what's going on at his current job anymore because he's leaving. But then he gets a call about this Anthony Hopkins situation. Let me Crawford, Mr. Crawford.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Teddy or Theodore.
I have the
Theodore
Wikipedia
Crawford.
pulled up. Ted.
Ted. Let's call him Ted is better. So
Mm-hmm.
Ted, this old man that his wife was cheating on him, and he killed her for it. Um, that's his case, and he doesn't want to take it because he thinks he's done with this. He wants to move on, but he was in this situation. He was the last guy in the office, so they gave it to him, and they tell him, "Look, it's super easy. We have him with the gun. We have the gun that he used, and he made a confession. He literally confessed to the detective on the scene. So you're good. All you got to do is sit there and wait until this court hearing is over." He's like, "All right, fine. That sounds fair enough." But as they go into it, this is where the multi-layered thing comes in because
It's not all that simple.
yeah, it really sounded simple until you realize how much of a dark evil genius Ted is. He he planned all of this from the beginning, and I don't know why he roped in Ryan Gosling. Oh, and his name is William, right? Will, or let's
Yeah.
call him Willie because
I
that
think
that
he
was
goes by
a
Willie in the movie.
no, he doesn't because Ted when they're doing like a interview scene, he keeps calling him Willie. He's like, "Oh, you got my message, Willie." Blah blah blah. Oh, Willie. He's like, "Do you like that I call you Willie?" He's like, I don't care." He's like, "Okay, Willie," because he knows it bothers him. It's all a mind game for Ted. He
Yeah,
loves. He's a troll, big time, and he loves the game. He loves playing people like that, especially Willie. But he never flat out said that he didn't like the nickname. But I think he didn't like it. He didn't say like, "Sure, that's fine. You can call me that." But anyway, so to quickly wrap up the final details, there's a lot of twists and turns, but the two big details that you need to know for the movie is that the two big factors that were needed to get him locked up, the the gun and the confession.
yep.
The gun, it turns out that it
That
doesn't
was
have
the
his.
yeah,
Oh
that
yeah,
was the biggest mystery was the gun.
right. Yeah, the biggest mystery was the gun, and the confession was just like the icing on the cake. It was like, oh, and we got him saying that he killed her.
Exactly.
So the gun, it turns out they,
The one in
it,
evidence.
the one in evidence. How do I say this without giving away the spoiler yet?
Uh,
Well, it didn't have his print on it. I think it was
yeah,
right,
it didn't have his prints on it, and I think it had never been fired.
or yeah, it didn't match the bullet, or it was the wrong gun.
The
Pretty
bullets
much,
in
that
the
was it.
gun didn't match the casings that were found on the scene, and then it didn't have his fingerprints on it, and it had never been fired or something like that. Like there was no, I think there's like typically a type of residue when a gun has been fired. Um, this gun, I don't know like the way the evidence is formulated, but this gun, I think if I remember correctly, it had never been fired. 'Cause that was a big one.
Yeah, I saw this just only 2 days ago, so I should remember this.
I saw this like 4 years ago.
And I think you got the details right. No, but with that being said, it wasn't the gun that was used for the murder.
The gun
That's
in
the whole point.
evidence. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is already a conundrum because it never left the house. He never left the house. From the moment that he shot the gun and there were gardeners outside the house, they all heard what happened. They knocked on the door to see if everything was okay until the ambulance and the police came. He was never able to leave the house and hide the gun anywhere outside the house. So, yeah, big mystery number one. And then he got out of number two, which is the confession, because the detective comes in, right? And then Ted is there. He's standing at the front door and he tells him, they're having their talk like, hey, put the gun down. Yeah, what happened? Blah blah blah. He's trying to calm him down, and then he just says, "Yeah, I shot my wife. Yeah, I shot her in the head. I guess I got a little carried away with my emotions and I shot her." And that's it. That's a confession. That's all you need.
I remember
But
that scene so clearly in my mind because he says it so coolly, like cold. Not
so
cool in
so
like a
cool or cold?
not not cool in like a in a cool way, like he's so cool, but
Yeah, he says it in a cold manner,
in a very cold
matter of
manner.
factly.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
flippant as well. Like nah, yeah, I shot her. It's like
Yeah, he just says like, yeah, I guess I got a little carried away, I just I just shot her. Oops.
oops.
And then the detective comes in further because he's the only one that Ted allowed in the house. He wanted the cops to stay outside, and he says, only the detective. If he comes in, then I'll drop the gun. So he comes in, he sees who the wife is dead on the floor, and then that's when we realize, oh, this detective is the one that she was cheating on her husband with. This
He's
is the
the other
guy.
man.
This is the other man. Yep. So you see how this twisted mind is working, starting from there. So so what does that mean? We find out that he's the other man, right? So when they go to court, Ted reveals during the court hearing that, and this was a funny way that he revealed it too, but I'm not gonna quote it word for word, but I think you remember where the detective is on the stand. Ryan Gosling, Willie, he's asking him questions about the incident, and then the judge says to Ted, only to Ted because Ted is representing himself. He didn't want a lawyer at this time. He says, "Do
Yeah.
you have any questions?" And he says, "Oh, no questions." He's like, "Well, actually, just one, but I forgot how he worded it. But well, I know how he did his cursing part and stuff like that. But I forgot how he
Yeah.
brought it up initially. But basically, he just said like, but is it okay that the person that's handling this case or whatever was the one sleeping with my wife?" And then everyone was like, "Whoa, whoa."
Yeah, yeah. I remember the whole court going in like, "What?"
Yeah,
All the
nobody knew
whispers.
about this. This was new information. Nobody brought up. So obviously because of that, there
A,
was
a lot of a lot of evidence gets thrown out because that detective was the arresting officer.
yeah, the judge makes a reference, like a Bible reference that they also get into.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, what
And she's
was
like
it?
the is like fruit of the poisonous tree. Basically
That's
his
what it
yeah,
is.
his opinion or yeah, his words can't be we can't
It's
use this as
tainted.
evidence anymore because
Yeah.
yeah, it's tainted. Of course this detective is gonna say anything to get this guy locked up, so we can't believe his word anymore. He's too closely involved.
So already like the one of two, which is the confession, is thrown out because that officer got the confession.
Yeah, now I'm trying to play back the movie in my head because when the detective came into the house and Ted is standing at the front door, he is holding the gun in his hand.
Hmm.
He's holding the gun. So that's what the mystery is. He's holding the gun. They take that gun, but they find out that yeah, the bullets don't match when they take that one into evidence. And we don't know why because yeah, they were able to get the gun that he had. But we'll reveal what happened later. Anybody else has seen it, they already know what's up. But I'm
Yeah.
assuming most of the people listening probably wouldn't have seen it yet.
It,
But
it was a pretty under the radar film. It doesn't get talked about a lot.
I've never heard of it. Yeah, I've never heard of it until you recommended it. But yeah, I think that's the setup,
Yeah.
and it gets into a lot of cool stuff. But before I ask you about like any scenes that you quickly remember, I do want to say that there are two Star Wars quotes in this movie right in the first 30 minutes. And I'm gonna draw the scene for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
The
Do it.
first one
My
is
eyes are
when
closed. Draw the scene.
the first one I'm gonna jog your memory. The first one is when Ted he went to the resort. He saw his wife and the detective. I don't remember his name, so that's why he's just a detective. So the wife and the detective, they're hanging out at the pool at the resort or the hotel, whatever it is. It's probably motel. They're hanging out
Motel,
there. He knows they've
hotel.
been cheating for a while,
Hmm.
and yeah, then he comes back home and he's working on his little he has like this contraption that he made by himself fully, and it looks like a just a slide for a clear ball that he puts on there, and it's like a mechanical slide. It looks like a railing or like a tracks for this ball to just roll through, and he
Oh yeah,
made
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, he makes it. This is his hobby. And then his wife comes home late. She walks in and the first thing he says is hello there. He says hello there. That's the very first thing he says. So like, oh, Star Wars.
The
So I jotted
wife,
that down.
General Ted.
Yeah. So then they have their conversation and he confronts her. He knows that she's well, actually he doesn't say it just yet. He doesn't say it just yet, but he's giving off the impression that he knows
Yeah,
that she's
and,
cheating.
and she's not picking up what he's putting down.
I think she's suspicious. She's like, "Oh, what is this about?" And then the last thing that he says before he actually confronts her, he says, "I love you." And she says, "I know." And then she's about to walk away. I'm like,
Oh,
"Oh, the
I
Star Wars
remember
line."
that.
Yeah. He's like, "I love you." She's like, "I know." And then that's when he says, I know you're cheating on me." And then that's when it gets rolling. But yeah, I just had to bring that up like a fun fact. Maybe Wikipedia can add that in. Two Star
There
Wars
are
quotes.
two Star Wars quotes in this film.
Yeah.
We got to go edit the Wikipedia ourselves.
Oh yeah, we could do that. It's easy to do that. So with that said, is there anything that you want to bring up about the movie that quickly comes to mind? I know you've seen it a long time ago, but
Uh, the scene that I remember clearly, we would have to get into spoiler territory. So
oh,
we
we're
have to get,
spoiling. This
yeah.
is all spoilers.
So from here onward, because I think we've kind of been dancing around the real spoilers, but now we're gonna really dive into it.
Elbow Nudge is a spoiler podcast.
Elbow
Always and
Nudge
forever.
embraces the spoilers. We love
Yes.
it. And so my favorite scene, and I say it's my favorite. If I was to rewatch the film, this probably might change, but I say favorite because it's the most memorable scene for me. And that is the scene, the I gotcha scene at the hospital. Or I can't remember if it's the hospital, but
Okay.
it's when Ryan Gosling, Will
Willie.
tells Ted,
William Beecham. That's his name.
William Beecham. That's right. And
Hmm.
I remembered the officer's name. It was Nunnally, because that's the
The
name of
officer?
the detective that has an affair with the wife. Isn't it like
Oh, that is his name?
Nunnally? I remembered it was because I remember when I saw it, it reminded me of an anime character that I was watching at the time.
Oh, you got to be right about that. Yeah. I didn't remember it.
So I have the Wikipedia up. I could just look.
Okay.
But oh yeah, it's Nunnally.
How do you spell it?
Nunally.
Oh,
Nunnally.
okay.
But the scene that stood out to me was that scene where Ryan Gosling tells him, like, well, originally your charges were, what was it, attempted murder? Because his wife, that was the thing, his wife didn't die upon being shot, but she was in a coma, like on life
Yes.
support.
That was
So,
a kind of a little reveal as well. We thought she was dead.
yeah, we
And
thought
he
she
says
was
he shot
dead.
her in the head too, but I think he was just trying to
Yeah.
make his confession sound worse.
And also this guy Ted, he really banked on Nunnally having an emotional reaction to all of this because that's what threw the whole case out was this detective's reaction and the handling of it all.
Yeah, multiple times.
Oh yeah.
Actually, that's
And
one of the things I forgot to mention, but
uh-huh.
at that court hearing where he says that this is the man that's been sleeping with my wife, he jumps over the podium and tackles Ted. And
That's right.
that kind of puts a nail in the coffin that his
Oh
word
yeah.
is no good and that confession is no good.
He's
But yeah, keep going.
biased. He's got fruit of the poisonous tree. And then also like there's a scene where doesn't he like give Will a proposition to plant false evidence or something? I remember something like that.
Yeah, yeah. I could tell you that real quick unless you want to finish your thought.
I'll finish my thought real quick. My
Okay.
favorite scene is whenever the wife, like Ted, like his way of getting away with the murder is that she's on life support. He's her power of attorney. Just he's her husband. So the doctor is like, oh, we can keep her on life support, or we can what was it? We can pull the plug because we don't know when she's gonna wake up. She's in a coma. And meanwhile, what was it? Ted is trying to get a court order or something to
Yes.
that way they don't pull the plug. And I remember that was a really emotional scene. I was sitting there like, no, run, get to him, like don't let him pull the plug. And like unfortunately Will is too late and the plug is pulled on Ted's wife, and she doesn't last long off of life support, and she sadly passes away. And I remember being so sad and being like oh no, she died, like just when we thought that there might have been a chance. And so those emotions then lead into why I like the scene at the end so much, which is where the mystery of the gun in of itself is finally solved, and Will is more driven, and he's especially driven to solve this case, much less like convict this guy. And so that's when he tells him like, oh well, before your charges, and like because all of that evidence had been thrown out. So just spoiler alert, Ted is acquitted, right? Of
Yes.
He's acquitted of um what he did to his wife. But those charges were for attempted murder because his wife wasn't dead. But now that the plug has been pulled and his wife is dead, uh, Ted can now be charged with and prosecuted for murder, just first degree murder. So now, Will tells him and informs him, you're going to be prosecuted for murder. And that's the first time we see the slip, this mastermind. Like, we see the slip in that facade where he gets upset. And that's such a satisfying feeling.
This is
That
the
was
first time he wasn't ahead. He wasn't one step ahead of everybody
exactly.
else.
And that to me was the most satisfying part of the whole film. Was that final like aha moment of, you're not ahead anymore. That's it. We got you.
Yeah, even Will during that final scene too, you can tell, he had those little smirks like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, like he knows I finally got you this time. He's like, all
Yeah.
right,
He's been chasing this guy the whole movie, trying to find something on him. And finally, he got ahead.
yeah. So just to explain a little bit of that and tell you that fake evidence thing. Yeah, so we already know the gun that was thrown out. They couldn't find the gun. They've checked the house two separate occasions. They sent a team of detectives to search, or crime scene investigators to search the house two different times, and they couldn't find it. Will, he was obsessed with trying to find it because they have such little evidence to actually get this guy.
Yeah.
So the confession already out the window, can't use it because of the court incidents. The gun, they just couldn't find it. They it just wasn't there for some reason. It made no sense. And then he was still trying to scrape for any evidence he could find. He goes to the hotel, checks security footage, sees if they could find anything that Ted was up to, and they do see Ted. He is walking around the hotel. They see him on camera, but that's not enough. Will tells because there's this detective, I think, a different detective, not Nunnally, right? There's a different detective that's been helping him with the evidence and things like that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he says, we have him right here to show the court this. And he tells him, no, this isn't good enough. He's wearing a hat, he has sunglasses on, it's blurry. It could be anybody. We know it's him, but this isn't good enough. And he's like, just come up with a story for it because that's what we got. He's like, no, it's not good enough. This isn't gonna hold up in court. We need to think of something else. And then the court date, or yeah, for the hearing is the very next day. Like he's exhausted all his options. So that night, Nunnally and Will, they meet up at, I don't know if it was in the driveway of one of their homes or maybe like a parking lot or something. Doesn't matter, but they meet up and he gives them the idea. He Nunnally gives him the idea that, hey, we could just plant a gun. We'll plant a gun in his house and we'll say that we found it. We finally found it. He says he knows a guy that works for, I forgot what branch, but some guy that could hook him up and make it look like the real thing. And
Yeah.
then Will is not about that at all. He's
No.
a he's one of the good lawyers.
He may be a
I
hotshot lawyer, but he's got a good set of morals.
Yeah, the only thing that makes him, like, he's a hotshot lawyer because he always wins his cases, and really the only thing that you could say is like his bad quality is that if he sees a case that looks like is not winnable, he'll just pass it on. He'll give it to somebody else. He won't take it. He only likes the cases that he knows he could easily win. And
Yeah.
that's what he's known for. But yeah, he's a straight shooter. He says no. He says go home, go back home, get some rest. Just no, we're not doing that idea. That's a terrible idea. But yeah, then this court hearing comes around. And this is the one where Ted gets acquitted. This is the important one. We don't know he gets acquitted yet, but this is the important one that's going to determine that. And he's basically walking in there with nothing. But he makes a plan because he's undecided because he's still thinking because everybody knows he killed his wife, but they got to get him on something. They need some sort of evidence. So he says to his assistant, or I don't know what she is exactly, but I guess she's like his assistant or whatever.
It's like an
And
assistant or a paralegal or something like that.
a co-worker of his,
Yeah.
he goes to her and he says, oh, also an important detail I missed. Nunnally calls him after Will tells him to go home. Nunnally calls him and says, hey, it's been done. We taped the gun in the blade of a lawnmower in the shed. So that's where they hid this fake evidence and this fake gun. And Will wasn't happy to hear about that, but it did plant the seed in his mind that, yeah, maybe we're gonna have to use this to get him on something. So that's what he uses kind of as his backup. He goes to his coworker, I forgot her name, but she's a nice lady that he trusts, and he says, "All right, when we go in, just stand by your phone. If I call you, if your phone rings and it's me, just hang up, come in, just whisper something in my ear, and that's when I'm going to say that the evidence was found at his house." And then that could win the case for them. So when it comes time for this court hearing and they're asking for evidence, like he literally has nothing, and they say, "Hey, William, this is your time. What do you got for us? This is his time to decide. Is he gonna lie and call his coworker, or is he gonna just tell him we got nothing and have Ted get acquitted?" And he told the truth. He said they have nothing. He didn't make the call. So that got him acquitted. Ted is a free man. And throughout this whole journey of his, he he's been getting more and more engaged in this case because from the beginning, as you remember, he he's moving on to bigger and better things. He's a hotshot lawyer. He doesn't need to work this case. He had multiple opportunities to drop this case, but he got more and more invested. In the beginning, he didn't care. He was just like thinking about his office and what kind of furniture he wants in his office and things like that, barely paying attention to the case. But now he's all in, fully committed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what he was doing, he was visiting um Ted's wife while she was in a coma at the hospital. And he would read to her. He would read to her because Ted and Will, they had multiple discussions about, they're playing their mind games and stuff. But one of the things that he mentioned is, oh, when people are in a coma, they can hear you, right? It's helpful for them to hear people's voices and to hear stories. And Will was upset at this time. He takes everything he's just saying as like an insult, and yeah, he just walks off. But I guess that planted the seed because that's exactly what he started doing. He started going to the hospital and reading to her, spending time at the hospital, a lot of time at the hospital. And really, after all that, his wife was really the last chance to get any sort of evidence on this guy. Because if she was able to wake up from this coma and she can testify that she was shot, then yeah, that was pretty much the last hope. So yeah, Caroline, what you explained about Ted wanting to pull the plug and kill her, and Will running over to the hospital with a court order to stop it, and he couldn't make it. That was like the biggest scene in the movie where
That was
the
hugely emotional
the
and
police officers are holding him back. They have him on the floor,
yeah.
and then he just sees this madman just getting away with everything.
Yep. Yep.
But I have to say, some things, now that we got a lot of the details in the movie explained, I like, do you think Ted ever loved his wife at all? Or is he just like some sort of sociopath or psycho that
I've thought
just,
about that because I've seen this movie all of 3 times. I saw it when it first came out. I saw it again at home when it was released on DVD. I didn't buy it on DVD, but I saw it again like at a family member's house. And then I saw it a little bit of it a couple of days ago, like a little bit after I sent you the text to watch it. And my parents were watching it in their room. And so I saw a little bit of it. And, thinking about this movie in the past couple of days, I thought about that too. I was like, did he ever? And honestly, I think part of him saw her in a way that I'm not comparing the two in r- role or things like that. This is just a closest comparison I can imagine. He probably married her for the same reasons that Terry Benedict was seeing Tess. Just
Oh,
from
here we go.
call back to now, like I'm saying, I'm not comparing, these two are
I
very
know,
different
I know.
characters. Like this is not the same person, but I think he viewed his wife as somebody to go out with on the weekends or whatever, whenever he had free time. Almost like, do you remember Invincible when he asks his dad, like, did you ever really love mom? And Omni Man is like, I love your mother, but she's more like a pet to me. Like, I got a little bit of those same like
So she's
inklings.
like a trophy wife or something.
She's the trophy wife, and she's there to pretty up the house, to take care of the house, to go shopping, pretty herself up, be that trophy pedestal wife. And he is like a sociopath. He is and just but because it makes sense. I just felt like the comparison. I have a one of my great grandmother, she had a wolf, and she had always told my mom and like my aunts, and then they told the story to me, that with my great grandmother, she had a wolf, and she had always said, once a dog snaps back at you, that dog is no good. And so she had this wolf, and the wolf would only ever listen to her. And then one day, the wolf got out, and so she went after it with a belt, like to put it back into its. It was like tied to a chain around a tree, and so she would every time it would get loose, she'd go after it with a belt, and it would listen to her, and it would get tied back up to the tree. Well, one time it got loose, she went after it, and it tried to bite her, and without hesitation, she just shot it. She was like, "Yeah, it went after me. I can't trust it anymore." And I compare those, like with the Omni Man thing and with like that thing, to this. It's like, okay, she's here, she's around, she's pretty, but now that she's betrayed me and she's sleeping with another man, I have to get rid of her.
That's a pretty good example because it's always now I'm just trying to reference every single episode now, but now I'm thinking of what's this
All the
guy's name from A
callbacks.
Bronx Tale?
All the callbacks.
Yeah, what's
Is it
this guy's name
Sunny?
from yeah, Sonny. Remember he always kept people like arm's length, right?
Yeah, he doesn't trust anyone.
It's kind of like that. It's kind of like you explained. It's like I love my pet. I love this wolf, this dog. I love my wife. I love this person. But hey, if anything happens, you're dead.
Once they snap at me or they do something to betray me, that's it. They're dead.
Yeah,
And that's how I felt it was for him. He didn't love her. He liked the idea that he had this beautiful wife, and she would, come home and eat and, look pretty for him and things like that. But once he found out she was finding something from something else, you're done. You're out.
yeah. That has to be it. He's just I saw him as a psycho,
He is.
especially with that hospital scene.
Oh, yeah.
Before he pulls a plug, he uses that as a threat to Will because
Yeah.
after
Because he finds
after
out that Will is going and reading to her.
yeah. Yep, and this is after he's a free man, he's been acquitted. The case is over. And yeah, like Will was there. Ted walks in and oh, he's gloating about it too. He's like so happy about it. But yeah, Will is trying to walk away and then Ted tells him, "Oh, you better start being nice to me." And he's like, "Why is that?" And then he says because he says it in a much more
Anthony Hopkins way.
planned out, yeah, psychotic evil genius kind of way. But basically, he says, "Because I'm the guy who could pull the plug. I'm in charge of her life. I could pull the plug on
Yeah.
her anytime. So you better be nice to me."
Yeah. Oh, I remember that. Wow.
Yeah, and then that's when yeah, again, Will is very invested. He takes that seriously. So he goes off and he tries to get, I don't know what kind of paperwork they need so that he could stop him from
It's like a
pulling
court
the
order
plug,
to
but
that way, I think it like removed him as being her medical like liaison or whatever, so he wouldn't have the right to pull the plug.
oh, okay.
And it was on the grounds that since he's the one that attempted murder on her, and the thing about being acquitted, it's not an innocent verdict. It's just not a guilty verdict.
Yeah, there's just not enough to go off of and
Exactly.
that's
So
it.
that
We got to
that
move
was the
on.
grounds for getting that court order was, he has a charge of attempted murder on her. He really shouldn't be the one to make the call on whether, to pull the plug or not.
And also in the whole string of events that's been happening, Ted got a restraining order on Will because of all
Yeah.
the time that he was spending at the hospital. And yeah, it just gets crazy how quickly everything starts unraveling for him. And also keep in mind that he's he has one foot in one job, one foot in the other. Like he's trying to finish up this case and close it out so that he could finally join this other law firm. And he can, by doing that, he's putting both jobs on the line. Like at one, his boss tells him, if you take this case, you could take this case and you could finish it, but he says literally, but heads got to roll. We know what happened in the courtroom, and uh, yeah, it was an embarrassment to this firm. So after you finish this, I gotta let you go. He basically says, and then at his new job that he hasn't started yet, he he meets his superior, which is this woman. I forgot this woman's name, but did I write it down? Oh yeah, Nikki. Her name is Nikki Gardner. Yes, they get together, they become an item, and she's looking out for him. She's a good person, but she basically tells him, "Hey, I had to put my neck out for you, and yeah, if you get back on that case, you lose this job. You can't have this job anymore." So yeah, he risked it all for this. Like it got super personal to him, and he did it because he was emotionally invested.
Yeah.
And there was also a really good scene. I wish I could quote it exactly, but I don't remember the name of that law firm, that new one that he was gonna work at.
I'm looking at the Wikipedia. It's Wooten Sims.
Oh, and what?
Wooten Sims.
Sims, SIM or
Yeah.
S? Okay, yeah, because I remember that's what she says in the elevator, and I thought that was a good scene. I don't know if you remember, but he goes to her because they had a Thanksgiving dinner
Hmm.
previously, so he met her whole family, and her whole family is like lawyers. Her dad is a judge, blah blah blah. They all have fancy careers. So he knows that her dad is a judge and could possibly help her out. So he goes to her and yeah, he tells her what's gonna happen, pretty much what's happening with the case. And she says, "Oh, you're still on this case? I told you you could lose this job. Why are you still doing that?" And then they're like walking and talking, and then she gets into the elevator and he tells her, "Look, if we don't do this, she's gonna die." Ted's wife. He says that she's gonna die. And then Nikki says, "What does that have to do with Wooten Sims?" And then Will is just, you can see on his face,
Yeah.
like, okay, all right, we're not on the same page at all.
Yep.
And that made him such a cool character too, because he's like, I care about what's
Yeah.
more important here. Like, this is just more than
People.
just a case. Yeah, exactly. But that was such a good face that he had on. He's like, all right, I get the kind of person you are and how you think about this. Okay, goodbye. Let the
Yeah.
doors close, bam, and he went on his way to try to figure it out on his own. That was awesome.
I need to rewatch this movie. After we record this app, I'm gonna rewatch it.
It was good. It was
It was
really good. Because, man, Anthony Hopkins as Ted,
oh,
he was
oh yeah.
so smart and annoying, but like in the entertaining way to watch. But like, man, he
Yeah.
knows everything that you're planning to do. He thought of it before you did. It is really good. It is really good.
Do you want to guess the Rotten Tomatoes score on it?
Oh, mm, 84?
A little high.
A little
A
high?
lot, a
Okay.
lot, a lot high, I should say.
68.
Okay, too low.
All right. 71.
Right on the mark.
Really? 71?
Yeah, 71.
Wow, okay.
It is certified fresh, but
Yeah, that's
yes,
respectable.
71. And then audience score?
Hmm. I feel like the audience liked it less. Is that true?
That's not true.
Okay, so 79.
A little high, a tiny bit.
73. Oh, tiny
On the
bit.
mark. On
Oh,
the mark.
see, it only takes me like 4 or 5 tries. I can get it.
You get around there, a little
Yeah.
direction. Yeah, 71 and 73. It was a pretty well received movie.
It's just it's just smart. You know, it
It,
is really smart.
yeah, I like the twists and turns. It's not a, to me, I don't remember it being a boring film. Like, I was, it had my attention the whole way of like, what's going to happen? What decisions is he going to make? Will is a really good character. He goes through this growth through the film from that hotshot lawyer to actually being a lawyer who's invested in his cases and um, he's driven just like for justice now. It's not even as like a pride thing anymore. It's just like a, we got to make sure that the law is followed kind of thing. And I like that.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with law terminology and things like that, but I don't think you have to know that much, and I was hooked the whole way through. And I was actually looking forward to it because I think when it's done really well, it is really entertaining. Anything in court or anything that
Yeah,
has to do with this sort of subject matter.
I love it. I've seen almost every episode of Law and Order, the original Law and Order, and
Dum
SVU.
dum.
Dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
And to me, the most entertaining parts, because Law and Order, you've seen it, right? Like, who
Yeah.
hasn't? So, to me, the most entertaining part is when they switched from the cops to the lawyers.
Right.
And I love the courtroom. Like, anytime they would go to the courtroom, I was like, all right, here we go. They got him. And I'd be like, it's inadmissible. Objection. I was like, 7. I was like, objection.
Yeah, it's good. It is
It's,
good.
it's good. That courtroom drama, but done
They have
right.
a lot of opportunity to have smart dialogue and clever stories.
I remember when I was a little girl, I always wanted to be that person that's typing, the stenographer or something.
Yeah.
I always wanted to do that.
I feel like I wouldn't keep up.
Oh, I could.
That's what that's what scares me.
I think I type like upwards of 70 words a minute. I took like a typing test one day and I type really fast.
Oh, we got to put that to the test.
Oh,
I'd love to see that.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm cracking my knuckles. My time has come.
Yeah. Have you ever tested that out?
I
Played
took
a YouTube video and then try to type out what they're saying?
yeah, I have. I didn't even have to like test it out before when I was working at this church. We would do VBS, and I used to tell so I was in charge of putting the media together, and so the teachers would come to me and I would just tell them. Like one time, I remember it was right before we had to get started, and they were like, "Carolyn, I'm so sorry it's last minute, but can you add this to the slide?" And it was like all this text, and I said, "Okay, you read it and I'll type." And so they were saying it out loud, and I was typing it. And I was just
They
going.
didn't slow down for you?
They did well. Like they were reading. It wasn't like they were sounding like an auctioneer. Like like they were talking like the way you and I are talking, and so they were just saying like their lines, and I was just going along. I was typing it, and that's when I knew.
I got to see it for myself.
Yeah. We'll put it to the test tomorrow.
I'm gonna crack my knuckles and bring my auctioneer voice as well.
No, we gotta do like an easy, normal, and legendary version where you read slow, read normal, and then
I'm gonna
auctioneer
memorize
voice.
the Eminem rap that you're gonna have to write.
No, tell me which song. I'll start practicing.
Nah, that's a surprise.
Uh, but yeah, I type pretty fast. I always wanted to be a stenographer, but I went to college, so I was like, I don't know. I don't want to be in law enforcement.
So yeah, is that the right name for that title as well?
Stenographer?
Stenographer, yeah.
Do a quick search. I thought so.
Because I was
Yeah,
thinking, I know, oh, it is stenographer.
a stenographer is a person who makes a written verbatim record using unique shortened writing style in courtrooms.
I was thinking, all right, I know I can't do that, so I just want to be the courtroom sketcher.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I just
Oh,
want to be drawing at the
that would be
courtroom.
so cool. We need to
Yeah.
infiltrate. I want to infiltrate like R. Kelly's already been incarcerated, but I want to like we need to infiltrate a high profile court. You be the illustrator and I'll be the stenographer. And then that's what we'll do our podcast on.
Yeah, that's what that's for, right? Because there's not supposed to be any cameras allowed
It
or anything like that.
depends. Sometimes I think sometimes they'll get like press will get special permission to broadcast, but recently with a lot of these cases, they just do sketches. Like high
All right,
profile
yeah.
cases like Britney, like the Free Britney and even like R.
And
Kelly and
Drake
things like that.
Bell.
Yeah, Drake Bell.
I'm kidding. That was over Zoom.
Was it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you didn't see it?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
I know
okay.
I know the Britney stuff was over Zoom until the verdict. The verdict was in person.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of people, I mean, if you put that online, there's already so many people clipping in, scenes from like Drake and Josh and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I need to look that up.
Yeah. I'll send you some links of the good
Yes,
ones.
please, please.
Yeah. All right, Caroline. So before we move on, is there anything else that we need to cover about this movie?
I think the only thing I want to like leave with is with our audience, and it's that you can currently watch this movie on YouTube for free.
Yeah,
So
that's
if
how I
you
saw it.
are, yeah, that's how I was gonna rewatch it, was just on YouTube. So if anybody wants to see this film, which we highly suggest, it's a good film, you can catch it on YouTube.
Oh, but wait, we can't leave you guys hanging. The twist with the gun. So that was
Oh,
pretty clever.
thank you for reminding me.
Yeah.
Yeah, the gun is the cleverest part.
The whole point of the gun, right? They couldn't find it. What was up with this? Why didn't they have the right one?
He clearly
So,
shot his wife, but how is it
yeah,
that it looks like it was never fired and the bullets don't match?
it was without a
Hmm.
doubt. Case closed. He shot his wife. Matter of fact, when I saw the movie, I thought, all right, there's no movie.
Open
I
and
saw
shut.
I saw him shoot his wife. I was gonna shut it off.
Lock him up.
But this evil genius of a man, he had the gun in his hand, the one that he used to kill his wife. And, well, actually, yeah, let me explain it like that. Let me explain it like that. He had the gun in his hand, the one that he used to kill his wife, right? And then the detective comes in. It's his forbidden lover that he finds out, right? That's laying there on the floor. And
It's
then while
forbidden
he's
lover.
distracted with all these emotions, with the trauma and the shock, Ted swaps out the guns. He swaps out the guns because he asked. They both agreed if Ted puts the gun down, Nunnally will put the gun down, and they did. And then when he sees that his wife is dead and who the wife is, that's when he swaps it out. But to make it a little bit more interesting than that, the movie opens up with him at this hotel, right? He catches them swimming in the pool, having a good time. He knows that they're cheating. And fast forward, he sees this footage. He has nothing to go off of. He just sees that he was at the hotel and he's asking himself and the detective alongside with him. He says, "Why would he go and see them on the day that he's going to shoot her? Why would he expose himself at all? Why would he go to this hotel where there's cameras at all on the same day that he's gonna kill her?" And this guy had a plan in mind. He actually went because he does his research. He knows everyone's backgrounds, so he knows that this man not only was a detective. So he sneaks in. He goes to while they're at the pool. He goes into their hotel room and he takes his gun. Nunnally's gun. He takes his gun.
Yep.
So the gun that he uses to kill his wife with later that night is Nunnally's gun. And then when Nunnally comes in, to catch him in the act. Well, not catch him in the act, but the aftermath. He switches it back. They give each other their same guns back, and it's like it almost never happened. And the gun just leaves the house because it leaves on his holster.
Yep.
So it's very clever.
Very,
Very,
very
very
clever.
clever.
Of course, this evil genius plots so far ahead that he even figured out what to do with the murder weapon. Of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah. If you guys have seen the movie, I'm sure you enjoyed all those twists and turns. If you didn't want to watch the movie and you just heard us explain it, I hope you see how masterful that was for a criminal to pull off. It was really cool. But yeah, I think that's all. I think that's all we got for that movie, right?
Yeah, and now we move on to me one of the most heartbreaking. Oh my God. Uh so your recommendation to me was to watch the film John Q
Yeah.
starring Denzel Washington. And I saw it that night. Like that you texted it to me, your movie is John Q. I saw it that night, like with dinner. I was like, all right, I'm gonna watch it on my own. My mom called me halfway through the movie, so I hit pause to answer the phone. I was sobbing, like I was crying. She was like, "Why are you crying?" And I was like, "Ugh." So I was trying to like relay the plot to her, and I was
Uh,
choking up when I was doing that. And so John Q is about a man named John, played by Denzel. He is a father. He is a blue collar worker, and this movie takes place in like 2002. It doesn't look like it's any older than that, so I assume the setting is around the early 2000s. Um, I'm trying to think of what else. He is the movie sets up. Well, also I should talk about the beginning, the first like I don't know, 10, no, 5 to 6 minutes.
yeah.
Uh, Starts off with this car. She's driving. It's a girl driver. She's behind an 18 wheeler. She wants to pass up the 18 wheeler. It's a
Two-way lane.
it's a two-way lane, and she's like, you know what? I'm just gonna hop onto the left lane and go in front of it. Well, she, transitions onto the left lane, and another 18 wheeler comes up, like on the left lane, coming the opposite direction. She tries to squeeze in between the two, and she gets, like, I guess, rear ended or bumped in the fender, and her car swerves and it stops right in front of one of the 18 wheelers, and the 18 wheeler doesn't have enough time, and there's a car crash. So that's like the opening. And then we go into John and his family. I think his last name is Archibald.
Yeah. Q is
And
his middle name.
Q is his middle name.
Well, initial. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so John has a wife and a son, and they're in some tough financial times. They both work. She works at a supermarket, and he works at a factory. And it starts off with their car. They have two cars. The wife has a car, and he has a car. Her car gets repossessed because it's either you pay the bill, like you either pay the mortgage or you pay the car payment. And would you rather lose your car or your house? And you would rather lose the car than lose your house. So that was like the decision they had to make. And so the car's getting repoed, and the film just sets up they're a happy family. The little boy is so adorable. He is so cute, and he has a great attitude. He's he's polite too. The way he talks to his dad, there's so much love between the two of them. I almost feel like Tone, this is my weakness. I'm weak for these like father child moments, and I was already like I had not looked into the premise to this film. I had just looked up John Q and I hit play, and already I was like, nothing bad better happen to that little boy. And oh, I was in for
Sorry.
it. I was in for it. Cut to like a scene at a baseball game. It's the little boy's baseball game, and he's running from like second base to third base, and all of a sudden he faints, and it looks like he has a little bit of a seizure, but it really, like, he faints and he's not breathing. So the parents hop into their car and they drive to the emergency room, and they do all these tests on him, and the results come back that he has an enlarged heart. And because of that, he is probably going to die within a couple of months, if not weeks or days. Like it's just imminent because his condition is pretty fatal and he's going to need a heart transplant. And then you get into this whole logistics of organ transplants. And that's already, I think for anybody who already knows about the organ transplant thing, it's really messy. Just with that whole, you got to get put on the list. You have to have like the organ has to be the right type. You have to be the right blood type, all of that. And these people like John and his wife, they're not in high income, but John is like, "Oh, it's fine. I'm insured. I have insurance. The insurance is going to cover this. I've been working at this factory for so many years and I have this, like they take money out of my paycheck every week. I have insurance." And then when he files the claim is rejected and his insurance does not proceed with the payment of paying for, because like already they say just to get his son's name on the list is like $250,000. And that doesn't even cover what's going on right now. The son is in the hospital currently receiving treatment with antibiotics and morphine and all of these things, like hooked up to an IV, all of that. That doesn't even cover that. And so then to pay just to get on the waiting list is $250,000. And the movie already establishes they only have like $1,000 in their savings account. So this is a high price for them. And the movie then goes through these struggles of figuring out different ways to raise money. They try to apply for grants and Medicaid and federal aid and things like that, but they're caught in this weird limbo that I think a lot of people find themselves in, where you're too rich for Medicaid, but you're too poor for to actually pay for it. And then the whole thing with the insurance is that his job recently switched providers. So now they're going from, I think it's like a PPO to an HMO. So they take less money out of the paycheck, but with John's hours, he's technically a part-time worker now. He's not a full-time worker. And because of that, his benefits don't cover what they used to cover. So therefore he's not insured in this instance with his son. And it's just like, there's so much stress going on with the family because it's like, how are they going to pay for this? If they don't pay to get his name on the list, their son's going to die. And that's their big motivation. Their whole goal is to, like, they do not. And John even says like this line, he's like, "I am not burying my son. I am not going to allow him to die. I'm going to do whatever I can." And the breaking point in the film is whenever the hospital has to just release him because the woman who's in charge of making the call to like put the name on the list, to put the son's name on the list, is like, "You know what? He's not been getting better. You guys are not raising money fast enough. Y'all are clearly not going to be able to pay this. So we're just going to release him and send him home so he can die comfortably at home." And it's just like, wow. And the wife has a little bit of a break and she's yelling at John over the phone and saying words like, "You need to do something. You have to do something." And so John really doesn't know what that something is. He just makes a snap decision. He gets a gun and he goes and he holds up an emergency room along with the doctor who is going to do the surgery, he's the cardiologist. So he would be the one to do the transplant on his son. So he holds up the doctor and this whole emergency room. And there's people in this emergency room because it's an emergency room and they're sick. And it leads to this just kind of interesting situation of like camaraderie. Like, even though he's holding up these people, there's like a pregnant woman in there. There's a guy with his fingers are bleeding. There's a girl in there with a broken arm. Even though there's all these people in there, he tells like the nurses that he's also sticking up. He's like, "You treat him, you look at her." And like, there's a woman in there with a baby with an ear infection. And he's like, "You look at the baby." And so he's still letting people get treated. He's not in there with malicious intent. He's really only in there to get the attention of the hospital and to get the attention of somebody that can help him with this situation, because it's just a desperate time for him. And then this whole situation calls media attention and law enforcement, obviously, because he's holding up an emergency room. And so we get introduced to all of these characters of the people in the emergency room, the people out the emergency room, where you have the reporter and the hostage negotiator named Frank and the police chief and there's just so much going on. But uh, just to summarize it and to finish the summary, um, John, it's, I feel like my brain is moving too fast, but like
There's a lot going on in
there's
the
a
movie.
lot there's a lot going on in this movie, and it's
Well, actually, it's a very simple story, but there's just
yeah,
a lot
yeah.
of good scenes in it that I'm sure you want to bring up.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I guess I'm gonna go right into spoiling it. We already spoiled Fracture, so let's just
Yeah, I would
spoil.
say you did a great summary of the movie. Just get into some of your favorite parts. Or what was the scene that got you crying? What was that?
Oh my goodness, it was the phone call. There
With the
was
son?
yes, there that already he's so there's this scene for our listeners where um so he's been talking to Frank, who's the hostage negotiator the whole time. And he tells Frank, "Listen, I don't want to like he's like, "What are your demands, John?" And he's like, "I just want my son's name to be put on the organ donor list. I want you to add his name." And then outside of the hospital, there's this conundrum. If they put his son's name on the list, that's like setting a precedent, and people might go around sticking up emergency rooms demanding the same thing for their own sick relatives. So it's like they're giving people permission to do this for their own relatives. But then it's also like, we want to comply with his demands because if not, he might hurt people. And then, so they're like, you know what? Rather than have Frank talk to him, let's patch in his wife. Because his wife is currently on another wing of the hospital in pediatrics with their son. So they patch in his wife. And you hear this conversation that John starts having with his wife. And she's like, um, I can't remember if that's when she says like baby you did it or anything like that, but she tells him something like I support you or things like that. And then he says, "Can you put what's his son's name?"
His son's name? I
Uh,
forgot.
Mike? Mike.
Okay.
And so he tells him, "Can you put Mike on the phone?" And that's when he puts Mike on the phone. This little boy gets all the awards. Denzel Washington is clearly the best actor, but Mike, the little boy who plays Mike, is second best actor because when that little boy is on that bed and he's supposed to be sick. I believe 100% that this little boy is sick and not an actor in a bed. I was fully invested. And I was like, and they start having this conversation and and then also like there's this scene at the beginning of the movie where he drops him off at school and he goes goodbye Mike and he's like Dad no I hate goodbyes it's see you later and
Yeah.
he goes see you later Mike and then it like cut to now this scene on the bed like we're like in the hospital the little boy's on the bed and John's on the phone with him. John's still in the emergency room sticking everyone up and he's talking to his son and he says like goodbye Mike I'll see you later and then he goes like see you later Dad and I'm over here like it's just
Oh.
it's just so and then like it comes to the big reveal afterwards where he gets word because like the thing is also the press hacked into this phone call and the press is able to hear this heartwarming conversation between a father and son and there's more in the conversation. I'm really glancing over it because I feel like if I was to try to like say it, what the conversation was word for word, that would take away from the emotion. Because there's just a lot of like just a dad being a dad with his son, and his son is clearly so sick that his words come out slower and breathy. And he's telling his son like, who's your favorite bodybuilder, or like, here comes this, and the little boy's like, yeah, and it's just oh so emotional. But Denzel Washington, just man, amazing actor. He has this ability to where I'm not watching Denzel, I'm watching John Q, Desperate Father, and I was fully absorbed. And so anyway, the press is hacked into this call, and they've hacked into the what's the word? The cameras. And so the press is broadcasting this phone call with audio and visual of this phone call between a father and son. And what's it called? The woman who's in charge of putting the son's name on the organ donor list, she is so affected emotionally that she puts the little boy's name on the list. And just so then like the word spreads like to John, like Frank tells him like, you got it, his name is on the list. And the big reveal happens where John gets the doctor. There's two doctors in this emergency room that he's had in there, and he tells them like, I was never going to kill any of you. This bullet, like he pulls out one bullet and loads it into the gun, and he says, this was for me the whole time. I want you to give my son my heart. And it's like, what?
That's another scene we need to emphasize.
No!
Because he held up a whole hospital with a gun, and then we were revealed to that it was
Empty.
never loaded.
Yeah.
It was never a loaded gun. He never intended on killing anybody except possibly himself to save his son.
Exactly. And it's just like, even there's this scene, like the scene that my mom called me at where I was crying was when the wife calls and tells him like, are you praying? Are you praying for our baby? And I was losing it. I was absolutely losing it. There was tears down my eyes. It's a good thing I wasn't wearing makeup. I would look like a freak. You'd see my mascara all messed up and everything. And I cried so many times during this film. Like, oh my goodness.
There's a lot of crying moments.
There's a lot of crying moments. This is your revenge. This is like, you know what? She made me watch a Western last time. I'm going to make her cry this time because...
No, that wasn't even the goal. It's just, man, just watching a movie about a love between father and son.
Exactly. And just to cut to the end, the little boy, that scene where the film opened up with this girl trying to get in between these two 18-wheelers. She dies, and when they take her to the hospital, she's wearing an organ donor bracelet. And so they start doing this process that they do for organ donors upon their death is like, okay, you know, she's B positive, liver is good, kidneys good, heart good. And then because the little boy is B positive, that's a pretty it guarantees he's at the top of the list because of his blood type. Like, I guess there's I'm not very knowledgeable in this area, but I would assume that means there's like a blood type that's more in need and there's a blood type that's not as much. So because Mike has a B positive blood type, he's basically at the top of the list for a heart transplant. And this girl, she's an organ donor, she has a heart and it's B positive, so they can give Mike this heart. And what else? So John is about to like commit suicide to give his son his own heart, and the doctor, the cardiologist, is like, I might be fired for this, but I want to save this little boy's life, and if this guy is willing to go through such an extent to save his son, I can't let that be in vain. Like, I'll help and like take his heart out and give it to his son. But then at the last minute, what was it, like the wife, she runs out and she's like, John, they found a heart for him. They found a heart. And the next scene is like all of the hostages being let go. And this one hostage, this fellow African-American guy in there, comes out pretending to be John Q and gets arrested. And then meanwhile, they gave the actual John nurse scrubs so he could go with his son and see the surgery done and to see his son be out of danger health-wise. And then after that, the hostage handler, Frank, finds John and has to arrest him because he did hold up an emergency room at gunpoint and keep people hostage. So then the movie at the end cuts forward to the court. By the way, I just realized we both saw movies with court in it, but okay.
That was a theme, right?
This week is court week.
Pick a movie with a court scene in it.
Pick a movie with a court scene. So at court, they talk about like what was it that he was not guilty. I think it was for like attempted murder or something, but it was like the jury finds the defendant not guilty, and then it gets to like on the charge of kidnapping, and it lists all the names of the hostages that we got to know throughout the film. And all the hostages are on John's side. Like that's the thing too that I kind of glanced over and didn't mention was that all of the hostages are on John's side. They want John's son to get a transplant, and they also understand why John did what he did and how he was pushed to the brink. And they don't hold any like hard feelings for him. In fact, when they were let go and the press were interviewing them, they were saying a lot of the hostages were like, "Oh, John is a good man. John is a good guy." And like they weren't saying anything bad about him, even though he was the one holding them there. But when it comes down to, I guess, the matter of fact for the law, and it's they start reading the charges like on counts of kidnapping for this person, this person, this person. The fact of the matter, and the jury finds that he is guilty of kidnapping. However, the like his lawyer assures the wife and via also the audience that that means John is only going away for 2 years because kidnapping is not a super high. I mean, it's still a felony, but it's not a high charge like murder.
Was it called kidnapping in the movie?
Yeah, I think it was called kidnapping.
Okay.
And so John still has
I
to
just
go
thought about
away.
that because wouldn't it be just for kids? These are all adults.
No, kidnapping also applies to adults. It's anybody
Okay.
taken under duress and against their will.
Yeah.
I think kidnapping of a minor, though, is a higher charge. And that's how it's called. Like, it's kidnapping of a minor. And you go away for a lot longer.
But yeah, and then how was that last scene?
I mean, it's so bittersweet, but in the end, I still enjoyed it because the final scene is when John, they're putting him in that police car. He's going to get taken back to get sentencing, but his son, right before the car takes off, his son comes out and goes, "Dad, thank you." And that's how the movie ends. Like his son is in good health. He's running around. He tells his dad, "Thank you," that despite all of these ups and downs and the danger and even this going away to prison and things like that, it's worth it because at the end of the day, his son is alive. And that's all that John wanted.
And then he gets his last flex in there.
Yeah, he gets his last little bodybuilder
Yeah,
flex.
the kid loved. He's gonna be a bodybuilder when he grows up.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
he looked up to bodybuilders.
It was such a cute movie. It was such a like, oh my goodness. Cause that's the thing. This movie, I feel like I will never watch this movie again, but it's just because of the emotion behind it, the ups and the downs, and there's a lot of crying moments, and you see this struggle that this family goes through, and it's, I feel like a lot of people can relate to that too. Of, you know, a lot of people really only make enough money to get by and to afford the necessities, and then if you get hit with a major situation like this, it's really hard to cover it. And what was interesting is after I saw this film, a lot of people resonated with that. A lot of fan reviews really resonated with the story and the principles behind this film, because this film also tackles a lot of like healthcare and things like that. And so there is that giant aspect of it. But yeah, it was just it was a roller coaster of emotions, that whole movie.
Yeah, there's a lot of man. There's so many good scenes in there that I wasn't crying as much from what I hear, as much as you're crying.
I'm an
But
emotional person, that's why.
but I was holding back. I will say I was holding back because there's so many little scenes, like just little things that you wouldn't think would get me emotional like that. So even just them at the breakfast table in the opening scene. He's like, "Oh man, look at this family. Look
Yeah, how
how they're
happy they are.
bonding. Look at the
No,
games they
when
play while
they're
they're
when
driving."
they're in the car, I was gonna see if we could
Yeah.
try that.
Yeah, I forgot how they played it. They like try to
you have to
mumble out a word or something
you
like
have to
that.
mumble a word and then guess what the person is saying.
Yeah. That was pretty funny. And
I
little
love
things like
that.
that is like, oh man, That's a good moment. And
when
then,
they're at church and the his best friend and his son are looking at him like, come on, the game is starting, and his wife looks at him and he just keeps singing and he's like,
uh,
oh.
and then once it started ramping up for me when they were at the baseball game. And then
Yeah.
just Denzel watching his son, out on the baseball field. I'm like,
Yep.
oh, he's watching his son's game.
Yep.
This is beautiful. And
Yep.
then the way he's clapping for his son, like cheering for him. And then once he collapses,
That's
oh
it.
my gosh, like you
Oh
see
my
his face,
gosh.
he runs over, like, oh, what's going on? And then he carries him, like, all right, I'm taking him to the hospital myself. He carries him
Yeah.
over, puts him in his truck, drives him over to the emergency room. And all those scenes were getting to me, but the one that finally opened the water gates in my eyes is the hostage situation. They found that, they sent a shooter in there to take out John Q, but luckily he gets out of that, ties him up, he brings him out, and then he has that discussion with Frank. And then Frank is saying, look, if you don't give up now, you're either going to end up, I forgot how he said it, but he pointed up. Oh, yeah, he's like, you're either going to end up there. No, I don't know why he pointed up. I don't know if you remember, but he's like, you're going to end up here. I think he was pointing at the helicopters. I don't know what, like in jail, or you're gonna end up down there, dead, pointing at the ground.
Yeah.
And then John, he's like, I don't think you get it, Frank. My son is sick. Period.
Yep.
Nothing else. And then I just love that whole conversation. He's like, sick, help, sick,
Sick.
help.
Help.
That's it.
That
And
was
then
gonna
yeah, you
start like a
mentioned
chant.
it. You mentioned it. That was my apps. The line that broke me is I'm not gonna bury my son. My son is
Yes.
gonna bury me. That is
Yes.
so powerful because one of
Yes.
the hardest things I imagine that could happen is your son or daughter dying before you
I
do if
I
you're a parent.
always I always think of that line from The Two Towers, Lord of the Rings, when the king, I don't know if you remember the scene specifically, but the king of Rohan, he gets snapped out of that like trance that he was in and he awakens and he's all healthy again. And when he awakens and he's there with Eowyn, his niece, he's like, "Where is my son?" And then they take him out behind the castle to a grave. And he realizes that in his sickness and in that trance, his son died. And they give him his time to mourn. And when he comes back and he talks to Aragorn, he says, "This is wrong. No parent should have to bury a child." And that always resonated with me, like that scene. And I was getting flashbacks to that while watching this movie.
There you go. That's exactly what it is. The biggest tragedy.
The biggest tragedy. And I think there's even like I can't remember which movie, but it's like, if you lose your parents, you're an orphan. If you lose your spouse, you're a widow or a widower. But there's no name for someone who loses their child because that's just too tragic.
That sounds familiar. But
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know where it's
I
from.
can't remember which movie it's from. But yeah, and this movie is a big representation of that, just that desperation that a parent will go through. Especially, that's the thing too, and that is the frustrating aspect, and that's what pushes John. It's possible. It's possible to save his son. This is
Yeah.
not like something like an incurable disease. This is not cancer. It's possible to save his son. But what's holding him
And
back
when you say
is
possible, it's not like, oh, it could be done. There's a chance. It's like, no, they could literally do it. The only thing that's stopping them
money.
is money. And that's
Yeah.
the most frustrating part.
That's the thing. That's what pushes this film and John into what he does, is that it's so possible for them to just fix Mike. But what's stopping it is money. You have to pay $250,000 to put his name on a list, and that doesn't even cover the actual surgery and the upkeep of keeping him in there, like all of that. But it's just so expensive to get the help you need, and then they're not like, their insurance doesn't cover it, so there's a fault with the insurance as well, and there's just all of this red tape. And this movie tackles that, like, if it's a hospital, you're sick, help. Sick, help. And it's just, oh.
I felt I felt that very strongly during this movie because healthcare
It's
is
crazy.
so frustrating. It's
It's
so
so
frustrating.
crazy.
And yeah, I just see it that way too. It's like sh ignoring like the logistics and the politics and all that of like how it could be possible. I just think shouldn't we work to make it like that somehow? If you're sick, you should have the help.
Yeah,
Like yeah, I'm not gonna pretend to know like how we get it to that point, but I'm just saying exactly how we
exactly.
heard in the movie. If somebody's sick, they should get the help. It shouldn't have to be all these hoops. It shouldn't have to be so complicated and difficult. And you know,
I don't know
this is a
anything
very good
about the
scenario.
exactly. I don't know anything about the medical industry in those terms or the insurance industry, but there needs to be some reworking to where it is that simple because it's just crazy. But I did want to bring up this one scene that also got me like super teary was the couple that's in the emergency room and the wife is pregnant and she starts going through contractions and like it's like, oh no, the baby's coming, she's giving birth. And the dad is sitting out there, like the husband, he's sitting outside the room hearing his wife cry out, and John is looking at him and like, I remember. He's like, I remember when I went through that. And he goes, do you know if it's a boy or a girl? And he goes, I don't care, man. As long as as long as the baby's healthy.
Yep.
And oh, I was already emotional. I was crying, and then you see John's face, like the
Mm-hmm.
same type of anguish and sadness behind those eyes. And then even the husband picks up on that. He's like, I didn't mean anything by that, man. And he's like, no, it's who wouldn't want that? What parent wouldn't want that?
And it's such a true answer because that's the answer you're always gonna hear if you ask somebody that.
Oh yeah.
It's like such natural dialogue, but man, in this scenario,
In
it's
this
like,
scenario,
come on,
it's
this
yep.
and his kid is
Yep.
not all that healthy at the moment.
Yep.
But I wanted to bring up a scene that I thought you were gonna bring up, where the conversation with his son, but when he was by his bedside and he was ready to kill himself, and he was basically telling him goodbye. You remember that?
Yep.
When he's like, "Son, I want you to listen to me, all right? What right now you're not interested in girls, but you will be, and when you are, you treat them like princesses, all right? Because that's what they
Princesses.
are." But oh yeah, then he says that listen to your mom, everything that your mom says.
She's your best friend.
Yeah, and you listen to her, all right? Everything she says. And yeah, just that whole goodbye. And it's so
I was
sad because the son
bawling.
doesn't know it. The
He
son doesn't
doesn't
know what's gonna
know.
happen.
And that's the thing too, is he tells him goodbye after we already have that whole I hate goodbyes. It's see you
Yeah.
later.
Yeah, and that's what that really meant goodbye.
Yep. Yep.
And yeah, and then just fast forward to that scene that you mentioned where he was ready. He was ready
He was
to
he was ready to pull
commit
the trigger
suicide. Yeah,
on
he loaded
himself.
his gun. He was laying right there on the operation table, and he had the gun to his head. They made it so tense because his finger was on the trigger. He was getting ready to pull it, and then the wife comes running in, bangs on the door. That stops the whole thing. She tells him, "We have a donor. We have a donor. We could do it.
Yep.
You don't have to kill yourself."
Yep. Oh,
So it was beautiful.
there's one line in the movie that I think I'm going to quote like on the daily. Well, not on the daily, but I definitely have it in mind and I can see myself using it. And it was when that girl that is in charge of the organ donors goes to the wife, and the wife is upset because she's like talking to Frank, who's the hostage negotiator and all that. And she looks at that girl and she goes, you, I have a lot to say about you, but I'm a Christian woman, so I
Oh
won't.
yeah,
And she turns around and I was like, yeah, yeah, queen. I love her. I
I
love the
remember
wife.
that. Yeah, and that just goes to show how easy it is again. And she just decided, all right, I've been moved by that
I've been moved.
conversation.
Yeah. It's
I'm gonna write
also
them in.
it's also kind of worthy to mention this movie is directed by Nick. I hope I don't butcher his last name. Cassavetes, and he's also the director of The Notebook. And he actually, I don't know if he had a hand in right, and he said this movie, he took this movie on because he was inspired. His own daughter, when she was born, had heart problems. And so he says he has like memories of being in the emergency room and waiting on surgeries and things like that. And so he highly empathized like with the story of this. And that's why he took on the project to direct this film.
And it came through.
Oh yeah. He focused on that fatherhood struggle too. Like it's just you can kind of tell that a lot of emotion is put into this film from the actor Denzel to the direction with the director. This movie really emphasizes how much a father is willing to go for his for his son and ergo for his child, like just how far he's willing to go. But what's interesting though is the Rotten Tomatoes because this is divisive, like really divisive. And I'm already giving away like where the scores point to. But you want to give a guess anyway?
Yeah, I'm surprised you say divisive because I was gonna guess 100% critics, 100% fans.
Nah.
What?
So I'll just kind of spoil it then. Are you all right with that?
Yeah.
The critics give it a 23, a rotten score.
What?
Yeah. And the audience gives it a 78. Super high score.
I can't believe. Are you sure you have the right movie?
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
They probably all have health insurance and they can't relate.
They're all rich. They don't go through this problem.
Yeah.
They don't relate.
I don't want to hear the reviews. I don't even want to hear what they have to say.
Honestly,
No.
they're not all that great. I don't really agree with them. I mean, this was a good movie. I don't see myself watching it again just because of that emotional roller coaster, but I was invested the whole way through in this film. I was
If I want to
invested the
get some
whole way.
tears out, yeah, I'm gonna watch the movie.
Oh,
I
yeah.
plan on watching it again.
Oh yeah.
I can't believe that though. That's just wrong.
This is where we agree, a consensus. Critics are wrong.
This is where we agree because we normally disagree so much. Wow, I gotta pretend I didn't hear that.
I mean,
There's no way it could be that low. You know how many other movies that suck are rated higher than that?
the hope in humanity is the audience score. The audience was like, no, we don't acknowledge this. This is a good movie.
I wish we can go back to our first episode and instead of saying Greatest Showman, I say John Q.
Tony, think about it. You wouldn't. Greatest Showman is Greatest Showman.
No, but for that question about a movie that I don't know what I asked, but you remember that question. You remember that one? I can't believe that. Oh, that's gonna be stuck in my mind for a while. I gotta get it out.
You got to get it out by rewatching the movie.
Guys, everybody watch this movie, please. And once you're done, rate it on Rotten Tomatoes. Let's get that 78 up higher so it can
to an
look,
80.
yeah, so that 23 could look even worse. We gotta do it. I promise you, it's a great movie. And Denzel, greatest actor of all time, is in this movie. So please, that's my plea to everyone for this episode.
You can watch it on Amazon if you start a free trial with stars. So I saw it free, but starting and then canceling a free trial. That's how I did it.
You know what? Yeah, whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes to not pay a dime.
Carolina, I'm serious. Don't even mention any of the plugs today. Today, listeners, anyone who's made it this far into the episode, all I ask of you is to please watch John Q. Please. I guarantee you'll enjoy it.
All the plugs.
That's it. That's all I have to say.
We are going to have to end this episode today because something very exciting is happening this weekend. And I got to go get ready for it.
Oh, yeah? What's that?
Yeah. You want to tell?
On air?
We'll keep it a surprise.
All right. So I'll see you this weekend then. Everybody, we'll talk to you later. Tune in for the next episode. And I hope you all watch John Q. Goodbye.